We good? Good. Good evening, everyone. Hello, I'd like to call the Town Council meeting to order Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. In honor of her birthday today, Emily Zambrello, I'd ask Councilor Zambrello to lead us in the pledge.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sue, would you do the roll?
Mayor Lesser,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Forrest,
Here.
Councilor Bailey,
Here.
Councilor Carbone,
Here.
Councilor Clancy,
Here.
Councilor Durick,
Here.
Councilor Rhodes, Councilor Timbrow,
Here.
Councilor Zambrello.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. So I did mention the happy occasion of Councilor Zambrello's birthday, but I want to start with after that with a sad occasion. Just recently, in August, we lost Phil Lohman. For those of you that knew Phil, he was a long-time, 47-year Wethersfield resident involved in so many things in town, and is the one that designed the red onion, and which is a great symbol for our town. And as some of you know, he was the first ever, and we've only had one. We have a new program that Councilor Carbone, myself, and a couple citizens and the town manager worked on in terms of awarding the key to the town. And Mr. Lohman was the first winner, and I actually called him when he won, and he was in a nursing home and not doing great, but it lifted his spirits that the town was recognizing him, and it's actually in his obituary that he is the first recipient of the Key to the Town Award. So in commemoration of him and his life, let's take a quick moment of silence. Thank you. So tonight we have our first presentation item is a proclamation, and I'm going to read it. It's in remembrance of 9/11. So it's Patriot Day, a national day of service and remembrance. Whereas we remember all the heroes who were forged in the hours, days, and years that followed the terrible morning of September 11, 2001. Ordinary Americans who demonstrated extraordinary courage and selflessness. Their bravery helped prove to our nation and the world that what those terrorists most hoped to wound could never be broken. They couldn't break the character of our nation. And whereas we saw just how deep that character goes in the civilians, service members, and first responders who leapt into action that day, risking and losing their own lives to save the lives of others. And whereas we saw it in the incredible courage and resolve of the passengers on board Flight 93, who refused to let their plane be used as a weapon against more innocent Americans. And whereas we saw the first responders who returned to the twisted steel and broken concrete slabs of Ground Zero and the Pentagon for months, breathing in the toxins and the ash that would damage their own health, but nonetheless refusing to stop searching through the destruction. And whereas in the years since September 11th, hundreds of thousands of American troops have served and sacrificed around the world to deny terrorists safe haven and protect us, the American people. And whereas by joint resolution approved December 18th, 2001, the Congress designated September 11th each year as Patriot Day, and by public law approved April 21, 2009, Congress requested the observance of September 11th as an annually recognized National Day of Service and Remembrance. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Town Council, I, Ken Lesser, Mayor of the Town of Wethersfield, do hereby proclaim September 11, 2024 as Patriot Day and National Day of Remembrance, the National Day of Service and Remembrance. Encourage all our citizens to participate in community service in honor of those our nation lost, and to observe a moment of silence at 8:46 a.m. to honor the innocent victims who perished as a result of the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. In witness thereof, I here to set my hand on the cause of the seal of Wethersfield to be affixed this third day of September 2024. I asked Judy Keene to come up and say a few words. in remembrance of that day and how it affected her family. Judy?
Very briefly, 9/11 was a pivotal moment in our history, and everyone can remember exactly where they were that day. Nowhere was that felt more than in the humble town of Wethersfield, where we lost 3 men. I think that I can speak for the families of David Winton and Jeff Bittner as well in saying that the outpouring of support from the town of Wethersfield has been overwhelming and supported us in our worst moments. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Judy. So moving on, we have next the strategic plan update. Vlada?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Vlada Ragonese, and I'm the Director of Capital and Strategic Initiatives for the town of Wethersfield. I'm very excited to be here to give you an update on the strategic plan implementation and our use of ClearPoint. I'm going to start with a very high-level overview of just some of the things that have already taken place, the planning process initially that took place last summer, talk about a timeline of future implementation efforts and kind of give you a process of that and give you a glimpse of what reporting looks like now and what it will look like. Okay, if you're not familiar with the strategic plan, last year the town went through efforts to meet together to go through a series of interviews, meetings, reviews, workday sessions. There were plenty of interviews conducted with key members of the community, with different departments and staff, in addition with the public, and a public survey went out where around 860 surveys results were gathered. From all of that information gathering and working with our consulting firm, S-Brand Solutions, we developed the strategic plan and the 6 priorities. Here you can see the 6 priorities are community cohesion and vibrancy, public facilities and infrastructure, public safety, sustainable public revenue and economic development, high-performing government, and quality education. So the projects that we're working on tracking fall under these key 6 priorities. Let's just take a glimpse into one priority to see what some of the structure looks like while we're planning for it. Here you can see public facilities and infrastructure. So here, I'm just not going to read them off, but you can see what the outcomes look like and then the 4 goals that fall underneath. Under each goal, there are also objectives and then initiatives. Initiatives are at the project level. So let's just take a look at our timeline, where we've come so far. So here you can see that last summer we were doing the strategic plan development process, and then in October the plan was adopted. Contracting initial setup of ClearPoint took place during the winter and spring, the winter of 23-24 and into the spring. And now we've kind of over the spring also been meeting, and into the summer I've been meeting with a lot of departments in town, so figuring out which projects they're already working on, which projects are on the docket, and which other projects will be in the future that roll up into these 6 key priorities, and then how they fall within the goals, objectives, and down to naming them into the initiatives. And then we can even take some of them down into the milestone level, depending on what the project is for key outcomes and milestones in those projects. So that's where we are right now, as you can see, right between summer and fall of 24. So now what are the next steps? So we're still finalizing some data gathering with departments and tightening up the projects, making sure that timelines make sense with the projects and are accurate. The last quarter that closed, or the first quarter of this fiscal year, closed June 30th. So that was kind of our test period where we logged data updates for each project, or most projects. So going forward, we'll be continuing to do that, getting more status updates from quarter to quarter. So there will be 4 updates for each project. moving forward per year. Those updates will both be in narrative formats. We can also update based on percentages complete on each project. We can also track who's working on what projects, who are collaborators, and other key milestones within there as well. Right now, we're also working on developing a dashboard, an internal dashboard of the project. So at a quick glance, you could go in and take a look at what the slew of projects look like based on statuses. And that's something else we also did. We updated key indicators for each status of each project. So right now we have 4 on hold, in progress, complete, and there's one more that I'm forgetting. But so that's kind of where we are right now, setting the statuses for all the projects, making sure they make sense, and aligning them with the correct goals and initiatives. And we've gotten pretty far through that process, but there's still a bit of work to go there. So the next step is also, like I mentioned, creating the internal dashboard, but then also an external dashboard so that the public can go on, anyone can go on and see where we are working on our projects at any given moment, what the statuses look like, and high-level reporting there. So in chatting with our ClearPoint representatives, we do need at least 3/4 of data to be able to work on the external dashboard. So we'll be working on that come around the end of the year and into the spring. And then we'll be continuing every quarter at the end of each quarter to enter in updates and statuses so that at any glance you could go in and see the last quarters where everything is currently, and also be working on percentages complete and getting staff trained on that as well over the next several months. Okay, so now I'm just going to give you a couple images of what the dashboard and what the system looks like. So here when you go in, and let's see if I can point here. I don't know if you can see it on that side, probably not. Okay, so, so here you can see that there are the 6 priorities for the strategic plan right at the top. So you can click into each of the individual priorities and see the objective level, the goals, and initiatives. This is just a high-level view of what you see when you log into the system as a staff person or a couple other folks that can get in there. I'm going to show you what the view looks like inside a priority. Here you can see it's much more detailed. You can see the initiatives, statuses at a quick glance. You see those yellow squares. That means something is on hold. If it's a green arrow, it means it's on schedule. And then on the right, you can see that we also have a couple items checked off there and crossed out, which means that they've been completed. So that's at the priority level. And now we'll just take a look at each initiative. So this is the project level, each individual project. So here we're just taking a look at public facilities and infrastructure and staying up with park maintenance. So this one we can add in a number of projects that have to do with park maintenance. And you can see that there's clear start and end dates for projects, current statuses, which are in a narrative form, and then down at the bottom, I know it's small, but there is also a Gantt chart view, so you can see the duration of projects, and if we could scroll further, which we can't on this page, you could see how everything kind of falls in under there, and the expected beginning and end of each project, or milestone rather. All right, so here we go and take a look at just high-level reporting at the initiative or the project level. It's a very quick view just so you can see the last, the initiative title, the project owner, the period that the last report was in, start and end date, and then any milestones that also fall under there and their statuses. So very, very quick, very easy to see. This particular report does not show a narrative, but there are other reports that do. So just showing that distinction. Here's a quick Gantt chart of, this is particularly public facilities and infrastructure, but we could see it for all of the strategic priorities. But again, just a very quick view of when projects have started, where their status is, when they're expected to be finished. The little dark areas that you can see on that first top project and a couple below are percentages complete. So that data still is not in there fully, but just working on putting that in there just so you can see what it also looks like, but working on getting that more complete. And then here's one more view. So a different type of view that again just shows the initiative, the project, The end date doesn't have a start date in this one, but we can put that in if we'd like. The percentage complete, and this one also shows a narrative review. So these are just some options that we're playing around with reporting right now. This isn't anything final that you're seeing here. These are examples of what the reports can look like. So we're just seeing where the data kind of goes and what the most appropriate view is, or views of tracking our projects. Alrighty, and thank you very much. That's just a very high level. I do want to mention I did not show the dashboards here because they're just not ready. The data isn't pulling correctly, so I didn't want to show something that looked very skewed here today. But please let me know if you have any questions on this or anything else or timelines regarding the strategic plan implementation.
Thank you, Vlada. Appreciate your work and all the staff members who've been working on the strategic plan. Councilors, you'll remember working on this last year, and it was approved in October, a little less than a year ago, and glad to see things are moving along and appreciate it. Are there any council questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Vlada, for like Q3, moving forward, is there something that we could be, or items that we should be looking forward to that will be either presented to council or to the public that are, I mean, we saw some on holds, but we saw a lot of green arrows too, right? So I was wondering if you maybe give us a preview of maybe some items that we could look forward to seeing as the public or as the government.
Do you mean particular projects?
Sure.
Sure, I wasn't prepared to present particularly on particular projects, but I can give you a couple exciting.
I was thinking an overview, not really a presentation, like, you know, like some highlight reel, if you will.
Sure. On Friday, we just put out our RFP, our request for proposals for the Silas Deane Highway Corridor Study. So that was posted Friday. It will be out until October 4th, and then we'll be reviewing what comes in there. Oh my gosh, I wasn't quite prepared for that, but just some other projects.
Ask for questions.
We just received some funding from Preservation Connecticut for the Cove Warehouse structural assessment. We also had completed the roof for the old academy and the chimneys at the end of May. We're looking tomorrow to potentially get some funding for the interior architecture of that building. We'll find out about that tomorrow. Our Spring Street Dam and past recreational park improvements we'll be contracting, I'm expecting in the next couple of weeks. So that's very exciting.
Wait, what will that's a nice project. What will the public be able to look forward to, and, you know, after you get the contracting done and it starts to get built?
Well, the dam repairs will probably be happening first, as some designs of the park will be occurring. So there will be some public info sessions to weigh in on what you would like the passive recreational park to look like at Spring Street. So that's very exciting, but we are still finishing contracting, so we don't have any dates to present feedback for that one, but that'll be coming up probably in the next couple of months, if not around the new year in the spring. I can't exactly, I don't quite know the dates of that one. Trying to think of some other ones, but our trail improvements around the Solomon Wells House are moving forward. We have some preliminary updates and plans there that I believe maybe Deep will be reviewing, so that's moving along, but just off the top of my head, those are a few.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further council questions or comments? Councilor Zambrello.
Hi. Thank you, Vlada, for the presentation. It's good to see these projects moving forward in such an organized manner, and I really hope that these will be really helpful tools for us and the public going forward. And I think this might be a question more for Fred, but since the new town website is underway, I'm assuming that this external dashboard is going to be incorporated into that.
Yes, we'll have an external dashboard for the public for the strategic plan, a landing page for the strategic plan. We'll also have some, once we decide the best format for some of the reporting that Vlada referred to, those will actually be loaded up and people can look at past reports and they'll all be loaded up in one central location. So yes, the new website will have all that.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrello. Further council questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you, Vlada. Appreciate all your work. Thank you for your presentation. Moving on to item C, hearings, and hearing C-1, Mr. Town Manager.
Can I first ask you to hit see the lit up button, the one next to
This one?
on the right?
This one.
Yes, thank you. All right. Thank you.
High technology.
It doesn't always, no. Thank you, Mayor. So this first public hearing is a resolution adopting the Capital Region Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan and update. And with us on Zoom, up on the screen here, you can see Mary Buchanan and Nicole Govert, who were working with CROG to develop this. Now, this is a requirement that FEMA has, that all towns, once the plan has been updated, that all towns have to adopt it, and so that's why we have the public hearing now. And I'm unmuting them both, and I believe they have the ability to share screen, so.
Welcome, Mary and Nicole. We turn it over to you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I have some slides to share. We won't take up too much of your time. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, hi everyone. I'm Mary Buchanan. I'm from the Connecticut Institute for Resilience and Climate Adaptation. I'm here with Nicole Govert. We are both community resilience planners, so we have the same title. Ooh, it's advancing on its own. That's fun. We also have the Director of Resilience Planning supporting this project, John Trzynski, and we were contracted by CROG to work on the CROG Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan update, which happens every 5 years, and all of the towns within CROG get their own municipal annex along with the multi-jurisdictional document for this update. So here's our agenda for today. We'll be pretty quick. I'll just give a little bit of background about the acronym is because it's a hazard mitigation and climate adaptation plan this time around. So I'll explain what that means, and then Nicole will give us an overview of the planning process and the Wethersfield Town Annex in particular, and then we'll talk about the next steps. So hazard mitigation plans exist because of the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000. So they've been around over 20 years, and they get updated every 5 years. And the point of them is to promote hazard mitigation actions in order to reduce losses. Partially, they're useful for helping to direct local planning and organize local planning, especially when there's turnover within the towns. But also, one of the tangible benefits for towns that do these plans is that having an approved plan will make you eligible for FEMA grant programs. And these are 3 of the grant programs in particular that you need an approved plan in order to apply for. So the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program, or BRIC, the Flood Mitigation Assistance Program, and the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. So this is the CROG Region's 4th plan. So we've been through this a couple times for the region. Nothing is too new, except that this time, one of the reasons why CROG contracted with CERCA specifically, because we do climate adaptation work with municipalities in Connecticut, is to turn it into a climate adaptation plan in addition to a natural hazard mitigation plan. So that's why you see that acronym with the HMCAP. That's what that means. And there were a couple reasons why we did this. CERCA has a Resilient Connecticut program that was happening at the same time, and thought for everyone's sake, we probably want to only have the towns have to go to one meeting. But also there are a lot of parallels between the hazard mitigation plan process and the Resilient Connecticut program. So in both of those, CERCA and CROG are engaging with municipalities, we're assessing community vulnerabilities, we're identifying opportunities either to reduce losses through the hazard mitigation plan or for increased resilience through the Resilient Connecticut program. And we are either developing hazard mitigation projects through the funding through the plan or developing pilot projects to directly fund through Resilient Connecticut. So that's a little bit why every time I advance it goes twice, so sorry about that. So that's how we align those 2 processes. There were a couple of reasons. Again, this is the 4th time that CROG has had a plan like this, so we want to make sure that each time it happens, it adjusts to meet the new context. It's 5 years on from your last update. We also want to make sure it's aligned with some of the efforts happening at the state level around climate change adaptation, such as the Governor's Office for Climate Change. There are also some new funding sources at the state level. So in addition to having this plan sets up the town to apply for FEMA grant programs, there's also a Deep Climate Resilience Fund that had its first round
round of applications, I think it was fall of 2022, and they are gearing up for a second one. And in that application, they ask, is the project that you're applying for identified in your hazard mitigation plan? So this is an example of a non-federal source looking at this federally organized plan to see how towns are directing their, or how towns are planning for local resilience. So we want to make sure that the plan reflects the town priorities in that way too. And as I mentioned, we were able to align this with the meetings that Circa had with a number of Connecticut municipalities for the Resilient Connecticut program as well. So within the plan itself, what it looked like to incorporate climate adaptation in addition to the hazard mitigation that was already part of the last plan update is that we reorganized some of the hazards so that they were organized by climate driver. So you can see in the first column here, hurricanes and tropical storms. That was already a hazard included in your last plan. This time we've organized it with the tornadoes and high wind event, as well as severe winter storms, all under the heading of extreme and severe storms as a potential impact of climate change. Moving forward, we do expect to see more extreme, more severe storms within the state. We didn't take any hazards out from last time, but we did make an addition, which is extreme heat. And that was part of the discussions that we had with all of the correct municipalities when we met with the towns individually. We talked about extreme heat. We asked all the towns to identify their cooling centers, so that was incorporated into the plan this time around as well. I'm going to pass over to Nicole now to talk about the planning process.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, so I just want to give a little bit of background on the planning process and some of the engagement that we've done. Circa has been working on this plan for about a year and a half with CROG and the municipalities. So the first thing we did is we met with all 38 of the municipalities between May and November. And during these meetings with the local team that the town coordinated, we went through the town's list of actions from the previous plan, and we asked for a status on each of those actions. So they were either carried forward as is, carried forward with revisions, or marked as capabilities and retired. And then at those meetings, we also asked some more specific questions about what sort of recent storms has the town experienced, the flooding in the area, areas that have repeatedly flooded, or any other concerns related to natural hazards or climate impacts, including extreme heat. We also held 2 regional virtual workshops for the town hazard mitigation plan coordinators. One was in July, that was the vulnerability and risk assessment workshop, and then one was in October, which was the mitigation and climate adaptation actions workshop. We had 2 public meetings for input. So these meetings were open to all residents in the 38 municipalities in CROG. One was in October, or both were in October. One was October 10th and the other one was October 12th. We also distributed a story map with a survey for public input. We sent this out through press releases to the town and asked the towns to put those press releases on their website, and we received 21 responses. And then Circa also reached out to the neighboring communities and community-based organizations for input, so those environmental justice communities for input into the plan. And then we also held meetings with the regional utilities, including MGC, Eversource, Aquarian, Avangrid, and Wyndham Waterworks. We then drafted the municipal annexes, which we shared with every single town in December 2023, and we gave the towns a couple weeks to review their individual annex, and we received 36 of the 38 towns provided us with feedback, Wethersfield being one of those towns. And so through all of this entire process, we gathered all the information from those town meetings and the workshops and from the public, and we really used that to shape the plan and the priorities and strategies and actions included within the plan. And we wanted to give you a tiny bit of background on the town annex itself, because this is usually the document that the town goes to and will use for the next 5 years. So just how we came to these sections for the community overview section. A lot of this section was carried forward from previous plan, but we did ask the town for updates to those sections. If anything changed, we tried to take, the changes that the town gave us and include that. The critical facilities section, again, we updated this based on the information that the town provided within those local planning meetings, and then we also added the cooling centers. The cooling center locations were not in the last plan, but we did add them for this plan. There's a capabilities section. Capabilities, or this is considered strengths that the town already has, or the services the town already provides. These were carried forward from the previous plan unless requested otherwise. And then the mitigation actions that were retired, that we labeled as capabilities in those meetings, were added as new capabilities because they've been completed or have become common practice for the town. Then there's the challenges section, and this was based on the local planning meetings. We took the information that we heard in those local planning meetings and wrote, these are the areas that the town has challenges with. If there's a certain area that there's repeated flooding, or if there's, heat concerns, we wrote that as some of the challenges. And then there's a hazard losses section. This is the average annualized losses, and these were recalculated for this plan. There is a lot of information about how these statistics were calculated within the town annex, so we just go after the town reviews that if there's any questions on how the actual statistics were developed. There's the mitigation strategies and action section. All towns in CROG have these same mitigation strategies and actions, and these were created with feedback that we received during those workshops. The noted hazard mitigation needs section, these were written based on the challenges section above, so we looked at the challenges, and then we said, based on these challenges, these are some of the things that the town could implement or do to address them. And then there's the table, which is the status of previous mitigation strategies and actions. This is the table that we reviewed in the local meeting with the town staff, and we reviewed each action in this table, and these were the actions that were either carried forward into the new plan, they were carried forward with revisions, or they were labeled as capabilities and retired, and then those capabilities were put into the capabilities section of the town annex. We're almost through, I promise. And then there's the active mitigation strategies and actions, and this is the table of the town's active actions for the next 5 years. And actions in this table were either carried forward from the last plan, some being carried forward with revisions, or added based from the information we received from workshops or from those local planning meetings. And then finally there's the map section. There are 5 maps in this. This has the critical facilities layer provided by CROG. Circa tried to make some revisions to this layer. And then there's background maps. There's FEMA flood zones. Circa has created some mapping tools, and we have those. EJ, an environmental justice screen tool, a heat climate change vulnerability index tool, and a flood climate change vulnerability index tool as a background. And then we also have a dam inundation background, which that layer was provided by CT Deep. So why we're here tonight is because we are hoping that the town will adopt this plan. This is now the active plan for the region because it has been adopted by about half of the CROG municipalities so far. And the first adoption was in July. So it is active as of that July date and will expire in 5 years. If your town doesn't adopt the plan within a year, or you have to adopt the plan within a year in order to be eligible for those FEMA grants. So yeah, we're here tonight hoping Weathersfield will adopt the plan, and then asking that you send the signed resolution to us once it has been adopted. Are there any questions? We threw a lot of information at you.
So thank you, Mary and Nicole. And before I open the public hearing up to the public, does any counselor have any comments or questions? Anybody? Deputy Mayor Forster.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for your hard work in developing these types of plans. I can imagine that they are somewhat tedious. And we also know, just in my particular position, that I have the ability or the pleasure of looking at our infrastructure or some of the needs of our infrastructure, and many of our drainage needs, et cetera, seem to fall within these types of mitigation type requirements and or are subject to issues related to climate change and flooding and storms and those type of things. My question to you is, there's a couple. Has anyone rejected the plan? You said there was like 30-something communities, only half have accepted. So have people not accepted or shown concern about accepting this type of a plan?
We expect more to continue accepting. It's basically we got FEMA approval in, I believe, June of this year, and so adoptions can't start until that FEMA has confirmed that they approve the plan will suffice for their eligibility purposes. And then we sent that out to all the towns, and now we've been getting them piecemeal as towns have their town meetings and put them on the agenda, and a bunch of towns, I think, skipped August. So no one's rejected it so far. It's a question of how quickly are they adopting it. A couple towns have had minor corrections to a map or two. Sometimes they'll want a different facility marked, but most of the towns, 36 out of 38 of the towns did review and send back feedback on their annexes back in December and January when we sent them out, so there hasn't been any major revisions by any of the towns so far, which is good because if they do, then we have to go back to FEMA.
Got it.
Yeah, so no one's rejected. Some are slower than others.
So from our perspective as a governing body, it looks like if we accept this plan, we open ourselves up to the possibility that if a disaster does strike our town, we will have done the preliminary work that allows us to receive certain FEMA funds in the case of a disaster that we can then, of course, apply to our citizens in our town. Is that really the reason for doing this, that it allows us to be able to access those funds in the case of a disaster?
It allows you to access the grant programs. I don't believe that FEMA makes disaster, like emergency funding, reliant on this in the same way, but the proactive grant programs where you're looking for implementation funding to do an infrastructure project before the next disaster, that is what requires having a FEMA approved, locally adopted plan. So that is a big advantage to the towns. And then some towns also find that it helps them, with their local planning, and then it is also might help you with the strategic planning results as well.
So does that allow CROG to then access grant funding for its municipalities, or directly can the town of Wethersfield then access this funding for these opportunities?
The town of Wethersfield would be the applicant to those FEMA programs if you wanted to see them.
So then will we receive, if this is the plan, will we receive some type of detail which then associates grants, especially with the various needs of Wethersfield specifically? For example, if you had identified a particular flooding area and a culvert in a particular area, would you say, hey, this is identified, there's a mitigation plan, it costs us $1 million to mitigate and improve the culvert, etc. I would like to match you up with culvert mitigation funds, let's say at FEMA or something like that, right? Can we get a list that matches our needs of Wethersfield with the funding sources after this project is done and fresh in everybody's mind?
We could send you some information on the grant programs that FEMA has available. I don't think FEMA does any sort of matching between their programs and your plan specifically, just because, ideally every town, every local government in the nation is doing one of these. But Circa can give you some more background information on those programs if you're interested.
If I'm very interested, if it's possible, especially our capital improvements committees, if it's possible to match up not the access point or the funding that's available and our particular issues, because obviously you have the whole dashboard for Wethersfield Annex specifically. If you could match up those needs that we have with the funding sources in like a list form for our council, that would be very appreciated.
Sure, we can look into that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Further council comments or questions? Councilor Zambrello.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mary and Nicole, for that presentation, for doing all this work for all these towns, and the information is very helpful today. So my question is, because we've got 38 total towns in this region. They're all doing some version of this plan, and we've got our own annex in Wethersfield. Is there a focus at all on regional goals? Are there things that are shared between bordering communities that we'd be working with other towns to complete?
There is a multi-jurisdictional document that is part of this plan, and that's, I think it's almost 300 pages, I'm pretty sure. And that does get at CRAW's region as a whole, so that will outline there are some regional goals, and we worked on those from the two regional workshops that Nicole mentioned when we discussed sort of the shared vulnerability among the towns. Usually the towns end up reaching for their municipal annexes more, just because it helps with local planning, and if they apply for any grants, that's usually what it is. But that multi-jurisdictional document does have quite a bit of text related to the natural hazard shared across the region, as well as the loss estimates, and some, like we did a hazardous assessment, which is a FEMA software that looks at, what is the damage that would be estimated if we had a particular flood event or hurricane, and you can see that for the region.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I'll also add that in the annex, we have listed the mitigation strategy and actions, and those are the same for all the CROG towns, because it's taking a more regional approach on some of those larger goals within the region.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrello. Further, Councilor Timbrow.
Hello. So it's my understanding that the governor has to declare a state of emergency to open up funding from FEMA. So, for example, Simsbury had a storm in the beginning of August, and there wasn't a state of emergency declared, so they were unable to receive funds. But then we had flooding up in the Stratford area that was declared a state of emergency, so they were able to receive funds. So my question is receiving funds, because you mentioned grants as well, is that dependent upon the governor declaring that state of emergency, or is this another avenue if we as Wethersfield, experience something that might not be on a state of emergency level or isn't declared, that we can still access those funds for that purpose?
I missed some of the audio there. I think the question was, does the governor have to declare a state of emergency in order for you to apply to those grant programs?
Yes, yeah. Yep.
No, the governor's state of emergency, that's for FEMA emergency funds. These are grant programs, which is hopefully happening before the emergency, so that you are better prepared for the next one. So they're sort of different pots of funding.
Okay, great. And then my second question is, was there any flood areas that were expanded or added, or is it all based on a previous plan?
Sorry, again, I'm having an issue hearing this. Were there any flood areas added, or what was the second?
Or expanded, or is it all based on previous maps?
For Wethersfield specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to go back into the meeting notes that we took. It's unlikely that we took any areas of flooding away from the plan. It would be if the town had said during that local planning meeting, this is a street that floods and we're concerned about. We would have added that into the plan in that challenges section. It's very unlikely that unless the town has done a large infrastructure program that has completely decreased the flooding in an area, that we would have taken out any flooding related concerns.
Yeah, no, I was asking more along the lines of if it was expanded and it was in a residential area, then that would mean flood insurance for residents, and I just didn't know if there was data about if a flood zone was expanded and if that's gonna now, impact residents.
No, this wouldn't be, the FEMA delineated flood zones are what influence the flood insurance, and these plans, your table of actions would be more like, this intersection has a persistent flooding problem, but that doesn't change the FEMA flood zones. Only FEMA can change the FEMA flood zones.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Timbrow. Further, Counselor Clancy.
I have a question about the report, which maybe is better for Fred because it's more specific to the town. But on page 3, under the challenges, where it's talking about the flood zones that they were just referring to, it says, annual floodplains associated with water courses such as Folly, Beaver, Cemetery, and Goffbrook. Do we have some body of water called Cemetery? Where is that?
Or is it Lee Cemetery?
I don't think it's the actual cemetery because there's no water. Do you know what that is?
I'm not
Body of water.
certain off the top of my head. I'd have
Okay,
to,
I mean, anybody, it doesn't have to be, I just, something I've never heard of, and I figured,
We checked.
yeah, we can check.
okay, thanks.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you. Any other Counselor Carbone?
Thank you so much for being here with us. I guess my question is about applying for grants utilizing this mitigation plan. So when we sign up for this, I'm assuming this is kind of like a strategic plan just to give us a roadmap and guidance, kind of which direction to kind of mitigate any effects from a catastrophic event, correct? So I guess, my question, is there a look back when we're going to, go for these grants? Are they looking at this plan saying, well, how far did you get in the plan? What are you doing before they would grant us funds?
All the funds are granted.
Nope. You're always shutting off my microphone.
Yeah, I think the question was, is there a look back to see how we've done previously?
While we're applying for these grants?
Right,
On previous plans, like
Yeah.
have you implemented those actions?
Yes.
yes.
I don't think so. Every time when we've done previous versions of this, we've always said it's not a report card. I don't think, none of the actions are mandatory. But what will happen is if you're applying for a grant for a specific project, that project should appear in your current plan, the one that you're currently using, because then you can say, our justification for why we're applying for a grant for this project is we've identified it through the hazard mitigation planning process as a persistent challenge for the town or a concern that needs, to be addressed with an infrastructure improvement. But I don't believe anyone is looking back to see in your plan 10 years ago, how many of those did you do? I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Carbone. Further council questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll just make a couple quick comments. First, I'm glad you added extreme heat. That's a real issue, and it's becoming more and more of an issue. And second, we know the flooding across the state and right here in Weathersfield. I got called by a resident who wanted to show me the flooding in his neighborhood, and I walked the street. These are real issues that affect our people every day, and we're reading about what's going on in Oxford and Seymour and that part of the state as well in terms of flooding. So your work is really important. We appreciate it, and we thank you, Mary and Nicole. And at this point, I'm going to open this up for the public hearing only on this item. So if anybody wants to say anything on this particular item, C-1 public hearing. Is there anybody from the public who wants to talk about this? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And again, thank you, Mary and Nicole. Appreciate your time and your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to move on to C-2 public hearing. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So the next public hearing is also going to be presented by a CROG representative. We have Robin Nichols here, and this item is both a resolution to repeal and adopt amended bylaws, and it's also an amended enabling ordinance for the Central Connecticut Solid Waste Authority. This is a group that's been together for a while that Weathersfield's been a part of, and it's kind of been reformulated, and we've been working hard to create an authority that has more ability to get things done, I think, for the current state that we're in with respect to solid waste. So I'm going to let Robin take it from there.
Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Or do you want me to make it a little lower?
We can hear you.
I'll wait for this to go up. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Robin Nichols. I am a Principal Program Manager for the Municipal Services Division at the Capital Region Council of Governments, which everyone here seems to be very familiar with what CROG is. So I am here to ask that the council consider for approval a resolution to repeal and adopt a new enabling ordinance for the Central Connecticut Solid Waste Authority. So a little quick background on the Central Connecticut Solid Waste Authority for all. The CCSWA, as we call it, was formed in 2010. Weathersfield was one of the original and continues to be a member of CCSWA. It is actually headed by your town manager as our chair at this point in time. Your town manager, along with other elected officers and a full membership committee, have been working with CROG and 13 other towns, I should say, to review the bylaws that have been in place since 2010 and to simplify those bylaws so that we can increase membership and we can move forward with some additional initiatives and programs in the Regional Waste Authority. As part of that, the ordinance that is on the books right now, we are asking that that one be repealed and that it be enacted with a more simplified version. Under the amended bylaws, we have changed a few of the provisions. Every single time the bylaws have been amended, then we would need to go forward and reenact another ordinance and go through this entire public process. So in order to simplify that process, we're looking to just simplify the ordinance as well so that it allows us to have a little more flexibility to move forward with governance of the Central Connecticut Solid Waste Authority. So right now I am presenting for you approval of the new enabling ordinance. We are asking that the council consider that for approval, and I think that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you, Robin. Before I open up the public hearing for any public comments, does anybody from the council have any comments or questions on this hearing item C-2? Hearing none and seeing none. Thank you, Robin. Does anybody from the public have anything to say about this particular item C-2? This is the public hearing. If not, I will close the public hearing, C-2. Robin, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
We will move on to the last public hearing item, C-3. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This item, it was introduced at the last meeting. Again, this is for a traffic easement at 551 Silas Deane Highway, which is the middle school property, the driveway entrance along the front of Silas Deane. This is a request by the Connecticut Department of Transportation for a small easement area because they are doing traffic light improvements down the entire stretch of the Silas Deane from Hartford into Rocky Hill. And as a part of that, they need to expand their equipment, so they need about roughly 800 square feet of space to put the additional equipment there, and so they are asking for this approval. It did go before before planning and zoning, and they did make a positive recommendation to move forward with this.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Council questions or comments? Any councilors? Seeing none, I will now open it up to the public. This is C-3. Does anybody from the public want to talk about this particular public hearing item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is public comment, item D. There are two public comment sections on the agenda, one now and another toward the end of the meeting. During each public comment period, members of the public will have 5 minutes to speak on any issue. We have added a lighted timer to the podium to help each speaker to be aware of the time remaining for them to address the council. When you step up to the podium, please state your name and address, and at this point, the green light will come on showing your 5 minutes have begun. The yellow light will come on when you have 1 minute left, and at this time, we ask you to begin to wrap up your comments. The red light will come on when you have reached the 5 minute limit and are asked to complete your comments at this time. I ask that you address your comments to the entire council and refrain from speaking directly to or about an individual council member or the audience. I also ask that you refrain from any derogatory comments or personal attacks, and please remain respectful. This section is for public comment, and the council will not generally engage in dialogue during this portion of the agenda. If any follow-up is needed, please leave your contact information with the town clerk, and the town manager will follow up with you. At this time, is there anyone who would like to address the public during public? Judy?
Judy Keene, 126 Broad Street in Weathersfield. As we are remembering 9/11 this year, at this meeting, I would just like to talk about something very positive that came out of that tragic event, and that was the development of the Keene Foundation. And we have been very fortunate in receiving donations over the years, funds over the years, but this year we were especially blessed by having money from the town council, ARPA funds that help to sustain our programs, and we recently got a larger grant from, or ARPA funds from the state. And in gratitude, we'd like to invite all of you and the general public to our showcase that's coming up on September 26th. And this is flyers over there too, and you'll see more publicity about it. But this will show you what the Keene Foundation has developed for our children in the community. And I hope you'll all come. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next, I see the young man in the back. Please come up.
You got it. Get your speech.
Hi, Brandon Hill, 117 Randy Lane. My name is Brandon and I'm a 4th grader at Highcrest. These are my brothers who also go there. My mom told us that the council had funds for a new roof over the media center at my school, and we would like to ask you to vote in favor of it. This is the second year my classroom is near the roof leaks. Sometimes when it rains outside, it rains inside too. Then we have to walk around big buckets and it's not fun. In March, the leaks were so bad that it started to smell around the buckets of water. Our media specialist had to move bookcases so our books wouldn't be ruined. My mom came in and took pictures to send to you. We really needed it fixed then, but it didn't happen, and the rain this summer made a mess in our hallway leading to the media center. We need our media center roof fixed. It is not safe for the new kindergarten students like my younger brother to have to walk around buckets when older students like me and my older brother are also trying to walk by too. And sometimes the tile gets slippery from all of the water that's spilled. Please vote in favor of the new roof over our media center. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Further public comment? Jim, I saw you, and then you're on deck. Jim, go ahead.
Guess I should sign in. Jim Woodworth, 33 Mill Street. I'm here representing the Friends of the Keisha Farm and the Great Meadows Conservation Trust. Coincidentally, when you're talking about flood and so forth, in the meadows, we had a big flood last year, and we've actually had one every 30 years since the last one being in '84. So if you do the math, we're overdue. I hope it doesn't happen on September 21st when we have the next big hurricane, because the Friends of the Keisha Farm are having a fall harvest festival, and we're inviting people from, this is the 3rd annual. We didn't have one last year, but we usually had it in the morning when the little kids are playing soccer, and then they'd come over, or their families would come over. But now we're having it in the afternoon on Saturday, September 21st, and we hope you all come. We're going to have some puppets. We're going to have some tables with people. Great Meadows Trust will have a table there with things to do. And probably the biggest news about September 21st is the debut of the Anderson Farm pilot farm stand at the Keisha Farm. They're going to be doing this in the fall on Saturday and Sunday from September 21st to October 27th, having some of the same mums which they just put out at on Broad Street, and of course the corn will continue on quite a ways. And I can't tell you how many people have said to us, oh man, it would be great to have a stand here the way we used to have it when the Keishas, before the Keishas retired. So that's going to happen on September 21st and Saturdays on, and then hopefully in the spring a regular satellite farm stand. Great Meadows Conservation Trust has a 6 acres of our field down in the meadows is farmed by the Andersons, and that's where all that good corn and stuff comes. And it will be marketed up there at Keisha also. Southwest Weathersfield will finally have a place to come instead of having to go to Newington or Rocky Hill or whatever. We won't be having hay rides around the farm because we can't afford it. But should there be a sugar daddy or sugar mama out there who would want to underwrite that, we could have hay rides around the field and people could really see what it looks like. So on 2 weeks later, on the 28th, is the Source of the Sea cleanup. It's the annual, sometimes like 25 years we've been filling half a dumpster of trash out of the cove. This is the Great Meadows Conservation Trust, along with the Connecticut River Conservancy. They supply the dumpster, and we supply the volunteers to pick up stuff and fill that dumpster. And we've even had members of the town council in the past who, I don't know if I can address, I'll address all of you. Councilman Carbone was there last year, so you're all invited to join us there. It's an annual event. The first year we had it, like 25 years ago, we pulled out 17 tires. But then the next year there were another 12 tires. It's amazing. How much trash appears and flows into that place, gets caught there, doesn't go down the river, and we can make it cleaner. And that's probably all that I need to say. But thank you very much. Hope to see you on Saturday the 21st, upland, and then down along the river on the 28th. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jim. Further council comment? Yes. Public comments, I said. Council public comment, yes.
Oh, no problem. What did I do with it? Is it the yellow pencil? No? Johnny Moore Dotson, 7 Springdale Road. Good evening. I'm here to speak in support of approving 2 motions on the agenda regarding schools in Weathersfield. Later in this meeting, a motion will be suggested to approve funds to replace a section of the roof at Highcrest Elementary School. Last Friday, I and other parents attended something called Coffee and Conversations with Mrs. Morey, the principal of Highcrest. At this event, Mrs. Morey informed us that after one of the many rainstorms we've had this year, during which there are multiple leaks from the roof, a portion of the roof over the Library and Media Center could no longer be patched. It needs to be completely replaced. So in light of this information and the comments from the gentleman earlier showing direct impact that it has on the students there, and with documentation included in the agenda packet that shows that funding is available, I ask the council to vote in the affirmative to authorize the town manager to accept the pricing and award the contract for the roof to be repaired. This is necessary to prevent further deterioration of the roof, which could lead to displacement of Highcrest students, teachers, and staffs. This shows that there is a broader need to invest in fixing, renovating, or rebuilding all elementary schools in Weathersfield. And with that being said, I ask the council to vote in the affirmative to support a motion to authorize the town manager to approve the contract for TSK TSKP Partners for pre- and post-referendum project management oversight for the Weathersfield Public Schools. Much was learned from the first attempt to pass a referendum to approve funding for fixing our schools. Those lessons were applied to establish a building committee, which then used their expertise to interview and recommend project teams to the Board of Education. The board has accepted the recommendation, and an affirmative vote from the town council is the next necessary step that puts us closer towards fixing our schools. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, John. Further public comment? Mr. Woodward, and then John, I got you on deck. Bob?
Thank you. My name is Bob Woodward. I live at 456 Middletown Avenue. I want to pick up on the roof at the Media Center on Highcrest School. I hope you will vote that. In fact, if you had more funds, I would hope that you would vote to do even more of the roof because it would save us doing it later. But one thing I would ask you, when all this comes out about the schools and upgrades, et cetera, please don't do it a second time. Please say, this is done, the boilers at Hamner were done. Please remember what's been done so we don't do it again. I would appreciate that. The other is the opera fund one, not the particular item, but the last meeting, the town ambulance was here asking for opera funds, and I don't know what it takes to go through that, and I'm not commenting on that. But I have watched, I think, parts of almost all of the hearings with Department of Public Health. And it's fine with all the lawyers objecting, et cetera, but there's two non-legal things that are important that they've missed. Communication and a sense of being a team working for the town, and I said this to you a few months ago. Maybe if some communication and conversation happened between the ambulance and the town about opera funds, it might at least open up some communication, some sense of working together, because the lawyers aren't going to do it. They're not legal things, but they are important facets in continuing a relationship. And I would like you to think about that, and how will you communicate back to the ambulance's Chief McMahon's request. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bob. John?
Good evening, John Weiner, 271 Garden Street. Today I come in support of the contract award recommendation for the pre- and post-referendum project management oversight for Weathersfield Elementary Schools to be awarded to TSKP. As a member of our Board of Education, Facilities and Maintenance Committee Chair, and also as a liaison to the town's building committee for the board, I stand by the choice of TSKP. The Board of Education voted via a special meeting this past Friday with a bipartisan vote to recommend them as the correct choice for Weathersfield for the coming phases of how to move our elementary schools moving forward. You will hear from Building Committee Chair Russ Moore, we think, on more details, but as I sat in the interviews of all the consultant presentations, several points were made clear. One, we as a town followed the correct process by forming the building committee and having them as the experts to find the correct partner to help us move forward towards a referendum. All consultants, including Colliers, who won the bid the last time, agreed that a building committee being formed and standing united with the Board of Education was key. I was thoroughly impressed with the building committee in these interviews and look forward to a great partnership moving forward. Second, all consultants were impressed by the homework that we did as a board and as a town in understanding where we wanted to take our elementary schools. This was evident in the RFP that was released and how well the RFP was executed by a partnership between the Board of Education and Building Committee. Third and final, TSKP is a great choice for our town. Their approach to this project was aligned with what we as a Board of Education asked for in our recommendations and aligns with our excitement for the future. Not to mention, 2 of the members of the project team are current residents of our town. This will no doubt strengthen the leadership that will be provided and only increase more community involvement. And before I leave, I want to make sure one thing is clear. Nothing is more important than the future of this town, especially when it comes to our children. It will be a central mission of all of us, board and town council alike, to make sure that the correct information is being given to the public. I know there will always be opposition around these types of initiatives. However, opposition of this will not scare me from doing the right thing. Communication to all as a public will be crucial, and I promise you, armed with the right people here, as well as folks working out in our community, the noise of politics will not stop us from moving forward. Thank you for your time. Look forward to your consideration.
Thank you, John. Further public comment? Christine, and then Robin, you're on deck.
Christine Maury, 52 Orchard Hill Drive. My second home, 95 Highcrest Road, as I'm the principal of Highcrest Elementary School. Excuse me. I come here tonight in support of the request for funding for the roof and the project for one section of the Highcrest roof. I was hired as principal of Highcrest School and started my first day of work July 1st, 2021. And on July 2nd, 2021, I experienced my first roof leak in a kindergarten classroom. The water was streaming down the center of the classroom as well as in the walls. Since that time, on July 2nd, I've experienced numerous leaks, so many I've lost count. And so I'm here today in support of this proposal to spend funding in the way to take care of one section of our roof. In spring, a new leak in our library surfaced directly above several of our bookcases. I know several of you have come to tour Highcrest and you've seen the library as the center of our school. That leak that came about early spring was patched several times and has not stuck. It did not work. So poorly, in fact, that leak has now drifted down the hallway and 2 new leaks have formed. So as Brandon, one of my students, shared with you, we now walk around barrels and we just have to manage 440 students, over 70 staff members. So the safety hazard that poses, as well as the direct impact on our learning environment. We hope you can help support us with that. Additionally, besides the funding to repair the section of the roof, I want to come back to you because 2 years ago we asked for funding related to our school playground. The town, as well as Parks and Recs, helped us to create a more inclusive playground. We put some additional equipment in, and we also put some mats on the ground to help provide one of our students who uses a wheelchair to have access to our handicap swing. I know several of our community members, as well as some of our staff members, have expressed concern about the mats over time. They are no longer level. They are no longer matching each other. There are some overlaps. There are some dips in the matting. And so I'm also coming tonight as a resident, but also as a principal, to ask the town to please take a look at those mats and make sure, for the safety of all of our students at Highcrest Elementary School and the community who also uses the playground, that we can get those mats leveled out. So thank you for your time tonight. I hope you will consider our request and support us in funding the roof at Highcrest School.
Thank you, Christine. Robin? Bob, you're up next after Robin.
I think you heard Bob instead of Robin.
Robin first. Robin, and then you're right after Robin, Bob.
Robin Barassa, 248 Dale Road. I come up here now, you know, very much interested in everything that's going on in town. I am first going to speak about the situation at Highcrest. I'm the daughter of a teacher. I work in schools. I've worked on 2 referendums in this community, Webb and the high school. And I am fully vested in our schools and the future of education for our children. It's really, really sad that the students at Highcrest, students, teachers, and everyone that works there has to put up with such a situation with the roof. That needs to be fixed, and I'm in full support of that. That's a big, expensive job, $156,000, which almost everything goes over budget. Hands down, has to be fixed. The concern I have is we're fixing a roof that needs to be fixed immediately, and we are going into a referendum where the presentation is going to be there and has been commented on that Highcrest is a new build. I am for I don't know what the referendum question is going to look like. I definitely will be in support of it. And I am in support of hiring a consultant. We need somebody with a lot of expertise. But none of us in the community knows what that's going to be going forward. And my concern is the consultant is going to come up with a plan, I suppose. And we have a very aggressive timeline. Well, I don't, but it seems like there's a very aggressive timeline for this referendum vote. 6 months once you vote, which I'm guessing you guys are, to hire the consultant. So in that time, I'm guessing that they're going to do a lot of community meetings and get a lot of feedback from citizens. They're going to be discussing which buildings are going to stay online, which are going to be renovated, which are going to be new build. Is it going to be cluster schools? And if that's the case, there's going to be a lot of discussion and redistricting. Nobody likes to hear that buzzword. The communication is going to have to be intense and frequent and feedback, and it just seems very, very aggressive. I have faith that you guys have chosen the right consultant, but I have a lot of concerns. The last referendum failed. It went to vote very quickly with very little information for the public. Going forward, I'm very wary that they're going to be able to gather all this information and present a very fair referendum question for the public to vote on. I think that just needs to be communicated. The concern, again, is aggressiveness. And final comment is that after the last meeting in August, I have to bring up the flag policy once again. It's been 103 days since the June meeting, Mayor, where you commented that you were going to revisit the policy, and at the last minute, you pulled it off the agenda because some people spoke to you, and you needed to discuss it further. I just listened to Ms. Ragonese talk about one of the strategic items was open communication. I don't have the verbiage with me. I left it on my phone, but I'm not sure that was a really good example of open communication when you put it on the agenda and pulled it, and all you said was a few people got in touch with you. So I'm wondering when that policy is going to go back on the agenda, because you did mention that you represent 27,000 people, and when it's just a small handful that is reaching out to you and very upset that you're even putting it on the agenda for public discussion, I think that's an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Bob?
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. At the last town council meeting, I spoke about the Little Red Schoolhouse that we have on 193 Wells Road, and the connection with the Weathersfield Art League. The Art League has been in the Stillman building approximately in 1960. And they were using this building, and I'm going to come to where I need to start with, but just a little information. In 1960, the Weathersfield Art League was using the Stillman building, which is now currently the headquarters for the Weathersfield Board of Education. In 1976, the Stillman building had a fire. The town moved the Weathersfield Art League into the Little Red Schoolhouse with a $15,000 grant from the state, and they've been in there since then. That's 64 years. About 2.5 years ago, they came looking for a shed for the back of their building, which my ears came up and started asking questions. It turns out no lease, no rent payments, we pay for everything. And in my review of all of this, I found that a document that Miss Bagley had said that she determined to utilize these facilities. She first did some analysis regarding the the community center and the Solomon Wells House and their pricing or rental agreements and whatnot. And she's determined that these facilities require a payment of rent. And here all along, for many years, that discussion hasn't even come up for the Little Red Schoolhouse and why we were not getting any rent. We have rental property in town. Town of Weathersfield has rental lease policies, and it applies to the community center, Solomon Wells House, the Nature Center, athletic fields and park facilities for town residents and businesses based on hourly utilization. From that, I've done some further research regarding fees, charges to residents and businesses using town of Weathersfield facilities, and it's revealing that the senior community center has regular sized rooms, not the huge ballroom, because that's a hard thing to price. But the rent is based on the number of people attending and the review, and in this review, a group of 8 to 10 people, such as artists, that would be using this room. And that would cost for 3 hours $45. And if they were to use that for 10 hours, that would be $105 from what I'm getting from the pricing people of these two facilities. And of course, the Solomon Wells House is really not suitable for artists because it's one big room, and it's just not suitable, so we didn't even go there. But just as a comparison, the Solomon Wells House, if it had 50 people, the rent there for that single room for 3 hours is $200, plus $50 for an additional hour. And while all of this is going on, back in 1996, Kathy Bagley had this little discussion with Mr. Erdman, our town manager, and that's where some of this came up, and everything died. 24 years ago, well, 28 years ago, it died. Stuck it underneath the covers, and nobody has talked about it ever since. So here we are. We have a group that uses our property, doesn't pay any rent, and when you go back and look at what other payments have been made to use property owned by the town of Weathersfield, you find, for instance, at the senior center, people had an engagement. First of all, I have only 2018 data. I got the whole slew of activity back then, and I don't have the most current, but if it was 2018 and they were paying $1,100 to have an engagement party, I'm sure it would be even more today. And the Men's Garden Club had a party. It cost them $55.
So Young, let me ask you to summarize your time.
I'll be back.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Young.
It's obvious.
Thank you. Further public comment? Christine?
Christine Kelly Lucella, 37 Belmont Street. So I had a couple things. I was reading the agenda and I noticed something up for conversation or a vote tonight is you guys want to reallocate $150,000 from the ARPA funds that was going to be used for repairs or improvement on the Cove Warehouse. But it doesn't say what you want to do with that money. So I know I always say this, and it's been mentioned tonight, in the spirit of communication, maybe on the agenda, can you share what that money, what you're voting on, you're going to take it away from the Cove Warehouse, but where's it going? What are the improvements, and I probably was not at that meeting or didn't pay attention, what are the improvements that the Cove Warehouse needs, and how quickly do those need to be done? Because we don't want to end up in a situation with the warehouse to say, well, take that money away, and then we're standing here in a year and a half saying, crap, we should have used that money because the warehouse is falling apart. I said it a couple years ago, the Cove is a gem in this town and we need to take care of it. I haven't spoken a lot about it, so I'm just asking, like, what are we doing with that 150 grand? Because it was already voted to improve the warehouse. I saw something on there about the senior center hiring somebody to make improvements there, so I don't know if that's where that money's going, but I think it would be fair for the public to know, because the public has been standing around thinking those improvements were getting done. So that kind of follows into the Highcrest School. Yeah, fix the roof. I mean, I think we have to start fixing roofs the way they're meant, like the right way. We can't put Band-Aids on stuff, and to hear the principal of the school say it's been like that for how many years? My kids are out of school. They went to Hamner, and there was issues there. But we have to fix stuff the right way. Like, I know a lot of roofing contractors, commercial and residential. There's a right way to fix stuff, and Band-Aiding it doesn't save us money in the long run. I would hate to see some of our schools get knocked down. They're part of the history, the tradition of our town. If anybody was out and about on the first day of school, it was kind of nice to see all the kids walking to school, and I saw kids going to Hamner. I was on Knott Street, walking to Charles Ray, going to middle school, high school. You got Highcrest, you got Emerson. So we really have to think about, like, yeah, let's fix everything the right way so we don't have to revisit and talk about tearing stuff down. Frankly, I don't think we have money. So there's a lot of big stuff that has to get done, and I got to do some more homework, I guess, because the stuff, budget stuff isn't my thing. Lastly, the dreaded flag policy, it's been taken off. It was put back on, it was taken off. In town, there's a lot of conversation about it, and I'm not going to go into it, but people think it's this group against that group, and I'm not talking Democrat, Republican, and it's just a lot. And walking in here tonight, I saw a poster on the wall in the hallway, and I was like, well, how cool is this? We have a social justice coalition. Hang the flags at those meetings. I'm not going to read it. Everybody can see it in the hallway. Social Justice Coalition. It talks about working with parents, students, representing people from all aspects of our town. It just might be an easier thing, so it avoids that. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Further public comment? Tom?
Good evening, Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walker Hill Road. Couple things caught my attention tonight. The first one with the strategic plan. Vlada had a nice slide up there about infrastructure and maybe buildings. Number one on the goals was to be proactive with maintenance. And that strategic plan was approved last October, and I haven't seen any, at least from the public side, haven't seen any improvement in proactive maintenance. And tonight you're going to approve a roof on Highcrest. And just so the public understands, this is a very small section of the roof. This is $156,000, doesn't get you much. We heard from the principal at Highcrest about the numerous leaks. Those have been going on for years. And I really feel that there's a disconnect between what's being reported by the people in those buildings to the maintenance people in this town, to the town manager, and ultimately to the town council that is responsible for funding or acquiring the funds to fix these things. Last month there was a torrential rainstorm on a Sunday, and Mr. Emmett shared a list of leaks in schools. Highcrest Media Center in the adjacent hallway, Silas Deane Gym hallway, Webb main office and hallway, and Weathersfield High School Media Center which turned out to be a leaking window seal, not a roof issue. And Charles Wright, the location wasn't specified. And I think as council members, you all ought to follow up on those and find out if those did in fact get reported to Physical Services and to Tremco, the roofing contractor, and when Tremco responded, or did they just say, Highcrest, we know about that roof, we've got a quote for it and so forth, we don't need to bother going looking at it. Charles Wright, that roof's been leaking for a long time. You know, we're gonna knock that building down, so let's not worry about it. I may be wrong. Maybe it all goes like it should. I think all of you have access to the Tremco online reporting system, and you ought to be able to see when the work order was put in, when the leak was reported, and what the corrective action was. And if that's not taking place, then you have no proactive maintenance program. You're just kidding yourself. And it's not just roofs, it's all kinds of things in town. We have to take care of our assets. You don't just let a building deteriorate and not fix it. If it's a money problem, then it goes to the town manager, and he works with the finance department, and they come up with a game plan. We have to use emergency funds. We have to go out for referendum and borrow some money to fix things. It's not just, let's wait and see if we replace all the schools. Well, what if the referendum fails again? You're going to go another 3-4 years with the water pouring in on the students? I mean, come on, we've got to think ahead. There's a good chance this referendum won't pass, just like last time. And last time we were working on a 2018 list of leaks in deteriorated buildings. So you have to fix things. I don't care if you knock the building down in 2 years, you have to fix it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Further public comment? Seeing none, we will move on our agenda to council reports. Any councilor have a report this evening? Councilor Clancy?
Sure. On behalf of the Tourism Commission, we're having a parade and a birthday party on Friday. Lafayette will be here for his birthday. We're going to be closing Main Street for the parade, which I don't think is going to last very long since we're closing Main Street from 4:30 to 4:45. Colonel John Chester Fife and Drum Corps will escort Lafayette from the First Church of Christ over to the Webb House, and Silas Deane will meet Lafayette, and he's there. These are both free events. The parade is free, as well as the talk that follows, which is going to be outside the Webb House at 4:45, and the head of the French Defense Mission to the United Nations, special guest French Brigadier General Vincent de Kitspotter, will share a few words on Lafayette and the French Alliance. And then there's a party from 5 to 8, which is in the Holcomb Education Center, and then more party following in the Webb Barn, for which you actually need a ticket, but I think you can still buy a ticket if you go online today at the Webb House before 10 o'clock tonight. So
Cindy,
we
that's
hope to
for
see people
Friday.
there.
This Friday, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Clancy. Further council reports? Seeing none, I'll just add one, and I've reported on this before, but I attended a meeting with a few firefighters and the chief this past week, and it's a small group of people, and we are working on firefighter recruitment. As many of you know, just like for many commissions and boards and running for office, it's hard to get people to volunteer today, and we are working on some recruitment efforts for the fire department. And, you know, some of you have heard me say that we have a few great things about Wethersfield that people know all over. Like, we're one of the oldest towns, or we could say we're older than Windsor, but either way, 1634. We like to say George Washington slept here. These are claims to fame. Another claim to fame of ours is we have the longest, oldest continuous serving volunteer fire department in the United States, number one, and that's since 1803, and if my math is right, that's 221 years, and we want to keep it that way. Chief Bailey served for many years. He knows how hard it is to get a lot of good men and women to serve, and we are working hard to come up with some recruitment efforts. So I will keep reporting on that as we keep trying to grow our firefighters. Moving on to the next item, council comments. Does anybody from the council have a specific comment tonight, or comments? Councilor Carbone.
I'll just say something very quickly. Judy Keene is an amazing woman. I knew she was, I knew her tragedy with her husband, but talk about a resilient, incredible human being that really turned tragedy into something special for our town. So I hope that, and the more I get to learn about her and what she's done, try to go to this. It's really interesting to see the programs that she's done for our community and for our kids. And I wish she was still here. She's just such a special lady. So I think that's great.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Well said. Further council comments? Councilor Bailey.
Actually, for the manager, if you could work with Sally and get Tremco out to High Crest or somebody, I just don't want to underdo it. I don't want to underdo it, and then, like Tommy said, if the referendum doesn't pass, we're throwing good money after bad. I mean, if we need to replace it, replace the whole thing. Let's make sure we do it right now.
I'll just tell you, we've been reporting on this since I've been here about the condition of all the roofs. Tremco has stood up in front of this council, the previous council, and talked about all the issues. Their report that the former deputy mayor referenced, we can get access to for all of you to see, but they have listed all the roofs that they recommend that we replace, and that's been a recommendation for many, many years.
I'm not looking to draw more lines in between us.
No, I'm just saying.
Really not.
But ultimately, it hasn't been funded. So Tremco gets every report, and they go out and, like the principal said, they patch it. They do what they can, and what happens if you patch a flat roof, as many of you know, the water finds another place, and that's why it goes down the hallway, and so it's always going to find its place. We need to replace those roofs. Like Tom said, there should have been a referendum on this 10, 15 years ago, frankly. It hasn't been done. Now we're talking about replacing some schools. It would cost tens of millions of dollars to do the roof replacements that we need to do today, right now. And that's just a decision that, we have estimates from Tremco, we have recommendations from Tremco. Happy to present the numbers to the council and say, this is the number. And then there's also the referendum for the schools that we have coming up. So we'll have to determine what makes the most sense for that. But in the meantime, this is an immediate need. We can't patch it anymore. They've done everything they can.
I just want to make sure we're doing enough.
Yeah.
No, I feel what you're saying. I know we're going to be talking about this, but we might have some extra funds, and I know there's a little bit left. Can we extend the roof a little bit? Can we do a little bit more there? I mean, we're already up there.
There are 14 different sections of High Crest roof that they're like their own unique, separate roofs that have to be addressed. I think every one of them can stand to be replaced today. So you're talking, well over probably $1.5 million to even begin to get those addressed. That's just High Crest. And so we have very old and neglected infrastructure, frankly. And so this referendum that's going to be, we'll have the consultant item on the agenda later, is one way to begin to address that. But even if that gets approved, and it might not, but even if it does, we're talking years before the first school opens. And if there's another school after that, years after that. This isn't going to happen overnight. And again, to Tom's point, we need to address these because they're not going to last for this process. Even if every referendum goes through and everything gets approved, it's just not going to happen that quickly. That's the reality we're in today. So we're doing everything we can with Tremco, but that's a very small budget that we have to work with Tremco. You've all seen the budget, and you can only patch so much. And at some point, you just have to replace it. Those membranes deteriorate.
I agree totally. I just want to make sure we don't underdo it and have to go back and do more.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Bailey. Councilor Carbone, are you good?
Oh, yes.
A few quick things from me. I want to mention Porch Fest on August 24th. We had between 8,000 and 10,000 people. It was a great community event, and I thank all the town staff, police, fire, and all the town staff that worked on it. I want to mention the Starbucks Plaza opening. Sally's got so much, and deservedly so, recognition, and we welcome Sally's, but the Starbucks Plaza on the Berlin Turnpike, Weathersfield, beautiful new development, opened last week. And in terms of events coming up, so I like to do what recently just happened between the last meeting and now things coming up between now and the next meeting. We have Corn Fest a week from Saturday, that's the 14th. And this Saturday, we have the DeSoto food drive. We have a real problem with food insecurity in this town, so if you can bring some food Saturday morning, September 7th, this Saturday from 9 to 1 at DeSoto's, please do that. That's it for council comments. Moving on to town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items for me. First is the Park and Recreation Board will hold a special meeting on Tuesday, September 17th at 6:30. The public is invited. This is going to be at the Pitkin Community Center. And the purpose of the meeting is to discuss the updated Millwoods Master Plan. We had the consultant here at a meeting not too long ago that kind of gave an overview of their process. They've been meeting with all the various users of Millwoods and coming up with some different scenarios. So they're going to be presenting that back to the rec board, and the rec board's looking for comments from folks to come out. So if people are available, again, 6:30 at Pitkin on September 17th. If you're not available to attend that, you can also submit comments that you might have to rec.activities@weathersfieldct.gov. You can just email your comments if you have any. And then we're also doing a notice out to all the abutters as well, so they'll have the opportunity to engage in that process as well. So this is moving quickly, but there's a lot of great work that's been done. We met with the consultant last week, and they had several different proposals for different scenarios, and I think we're getting close, so it's exciting. Next is that the Plan of Conservation Development is also in the process of being updated. This is a requirement that we have to update. We're actually a little late on this one, but the consultant that we have is working hard to survey the community right now. There's an active survey that's up on the web. There's a special website just for the Plan of Conservation and Development upsite. It's weathersfieldvision2034.com. And you can go up and take that survey, and we recommend that everybody, if you have not spoken with the consultants, they're also going out to some of the events. Though they were at Porch Fest, they had a table set up, had dozens of people stop by and, put, dots on maps and talk about what's special about Weathersfield, what they'd like to see in the future. Plan of Conservation Development is really about that. It's what we want to see this town become, what things we want to change, what works and what doesn't work. So these are all things that they're taking feedback on right now, so that this survey is one way you can do that. You can also go to Corn Fest. They'll have another booth up for that. They're getting out in the community, so it's a great opportunity for us because, again, this about once every 10 years or so we do this, so this is a very important milestone for the Plan of Conservation Development. It will also lead to some potential changes to our zoning ordinance, so as we look at what we want to see in the future, this is where you kind of weigh in on this stuff. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Town Clerk's report. Sue?
As of today, the town clerk's office has received 144 applications for absentee ballots. We're inputting all the data as the applications come in, and we'll begin issuing and mailing these ballots on October 4th. And this year, the voters also have the option of early voting if they will be out of town or otherwise unavailable, and early voting starts on October 21st.
Thank you, Sue. Moving on to item I, bids. Item I1, do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to authorize the town manager to approve the contract to TSKP Partners for pre- and post-referendum project management oversight for the Weathersfield Public Schools elementary buildings, and to allocate $55,900 of the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget transfers previously transferred by the council on August 19th, 2024 for this project.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think Councilor Zambrello got in there first, so second by Discussion. Council comment or discussion? Councilor Zambrella.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm the liaison for the council to the building committee, and John spoke a bit about this already, but I was able to sit in on some of these interviews, including this one with TSKP, and I think this is absolutely the right choice to go forward with this referendum. I want to thank the building committee for all their hard work on this, for coming up with such good questions to ask. I think we've got even more great context from these applicants because of the quality of those questions and just the thought that was put in by the building committee in this entire process and making this decision. There were other strengths and other applicants where I think there could have potentially been other good decisions, but I think this was the best decision, and I'm very excited to be supporting this today. I could go on and on about how good their interview was and their application, but I'll just say a few things. As John mentioned, two of their leaders in this project are Wethersfield residents. I think they said, we're going to have to be in the grocery store with the people of this town too. Like if we failed, then we all fail, and it's not something they want to do. They have quite a lot of experience. They said in 50 years they've only had one referendum fail, so I think that's a really promising record to look forward to. They also had a really strong understanding of this town's needs. They had clearly done a lot of research and a lot of following up with folks in town to understand why our last referendum failed, understand what our needs are, and you could really tell that they put a lot of thought into their application, considering all those things from our town. They noted other referendums that they had passed after they'd previously failed. They talked a lot about how they engaged the community in these things, because it's not just going to be about them coming up with a plan and presenting, this is the plan. It's also going to be, why didn't we choose these other plans? How do we compare these things and explain both what we're doing and what we're not doing so that the public gets the full picture of these decisions? I was really impressed with their community engagement work. They're going to be doing a lot of preliminary work to get out there in the community and hear from folks, and then they're going to be using that information to come up with a comprehensive plan. So we'll have an exact timeline of when they're going to be meeting, where they're going to be going, what events are they going to be at, what sort of engagement sessions are they going to be doing various activities at. So I was really excited about their plan. I think they're going to be out there in the community. This is their community too. And like I said, they have really great experience. They seemed genuinely excited to be working with us on this, and that makes me excited to be working with them. So very happy to be moving forward with this today, and thank you to the building committee and the Board of Ed for working on this as well.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrella. Further council comment? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thanks, and briefly, I'm very excited that we're going to be able to take a step in order to move forward our education system and really transform many buildings and take a fresh look at the process and the infrastructure and how we educate people. I was very impressed with the resumes when we formed the committee and put them together to look at this. It sounds like, from all accounts, that communication is high between all of the parties and committees and this council, and I expect that the communication with the public will be at the same level, if not greater. As far as input, what's going on, one of the things I was impressed with most, and I think one of the things that we struggled with most in the last referendum, was our ability to articulate why we are taking the steps that we're taking and maybe why we're not taking other steps, or at least have the information in order to make that decision the best that we can. So very excited for this motion as well, very excited for the committee to continue the work and TSKP to hit the ground running, as they say, and looking forward very much to a new and improved education system in the near future that we can then as a community vote on if that's the direction we want to take. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Further council comment? I'll just add a few things. I want to thank the building committee. They've done a tremendous amount of work. Many of them are here tonight. I appreciate all the time and effort. The Board of Education, thank you. I know you had a meeting 5 o'clock Friday on a holiday weekend. I don't know how you pulled that off, but kudos to doing that at that time. Sally, I know you've done a lot of work. All the work that's been done to this point, this is such a significant opportunity for Wethersfield. I always say to people, this is one of the biggest and most important issues in our town. Our town faces update and upgrade in our elementary schools. So many people pick the town they live in based on the quality of the schools, and this is an urgent need for us. So Thanks for everybody. I'm excited that we're going to take an important step tonight. And if there's no further questions or comments, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item I2. Do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to authorize the town manager to accept Omnia National IPA's consortium pricing, awarding the contract to Imperial Company for $156,600 for the replacement of the media center roof at Highcrest Elementary School.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Durk. Discussion. Anyone? Councilor Durk.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few questions for Town Manager. This $156,000 was previously allocated, correct?
Yes, it was.
With replacing the media center roof, will that take care of all the leaks, or there are other sections that need replacement that have immediate leaks at the moment?
I'll ask Sally Katz to get up and answer directly. I think I've answered already some that, no, it's not going to replace solve all the problems. It's going to fix the immediate problem. And, but we still have several sections that are pretty close to similar condition, I think, but.
The Highcrest roof is a series, if you think of honeycombs, and how they are connected on multiple sides. This particular section, the one we want to replace over the media center, will correct that problem. Are there adjacencies you can see in the proposal that is part of this package? That part of the roof should be replaced also. And it goes on and on until the entire roof is to be replaced. Are there sections that have deteriorated at a faster rate than others? Yes, this is one of those sections. And that's why at this point, we had done a pretty major patch job on this roof because at that time we hadn't had funding for it. And then timing-wise, when we did go out for pricing, the prices came back so high because the industry was still recovering from COVID that we had to elongate that repair to when we went out again for pricing, and it came back more favorable. And the pricing in the industry has now gotten to a bit more of equilibrium. But there's every part of that roof should be replaced. There is no doubt, but until that funding is available, we go at it the best that we can, optimizing buying power and timing to do as much as we can to get that building shored up.
Thank you. I understand that the whole roof needs to be replaced. My question is, if you replace this one section, the next time it rains, is it going to be a different section that's going to leak? Do we know that there are leaks?
That's possible. That is possible.
But they're not active leaks at the moment.
There are smaller leaks that, as the town manager said, water finds a route to where there is a weakness. When we replace this part of the roof, they will perform work on the connections to the other parts of the roof. Will another leak show up? I wish I could have that crystal ball. Based on my experience with this building, yes, we will have leaks in other places. We will report them to Tremco. We will come out and patch what we can, replace what we can. I don't have in my current operating budget a very large replacement repair. And so we do the best that we can with the funding that I have.
Yep. Thank you. My whole question was around if we replace this part,
then the media center will be shored up.
They'll be all set, and all the buckets that we have will be taken care of as of right now.
It will be a brand new roof over the media center.
Thank you.
Further council questions? Councilor Bailey.
Is this your worst school? I mean, it was built in a hole with a flat roof. I'm not blaming you for that.
Yes, right now it is the school that has the most problems. The other schools, when we have
I'm just
leaks,
talking about roofs, not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When it comes to Highcrest roof, right now is causing the most problems. If you look at the Tremco report, they will tell you that the Emerson Williams roof, which is extremely large, should have been replaced quite a while ago. But when we're talking about active leaks, Highcrest is at the top, yes.
Further council questions, comments? Councilor Carbone.
Hi, thank you. So you're asking for $156,000, and we have $185,000 available, is that correct?
Yes, that is currently correct. We're asking for the 156. There is always some contingency because we don't know when we get up there, and I don't want to come back and have to, ask for more. It gives us a little bit of leeway with some change orders if needed.
The 156 gives you leeway?
The 185
Okay, so
from the
but-
150 gives
So
us
if we allocate the 156, will she have to come back to council to go up to 185? Or
The
can we just do
185
that?
is already allocated for roofs.
Doesn't matter.
The money's already allocated, so this is just to approve this contract for this
Lump sum.
replacement for
Okay.
156. If there's more that she needs, she can utilize the contracts we have.
Perfect. Okay, I just wanted to make sure you had a little wiggle room, because we all know this stuff goes over budget. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Further council comment, questions? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along to the consent agenda, item J, do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? Second by Councilor Zambrello. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Jumping right in there.
Moving on to item K, one, approval and ordinances. Do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve R24-008, resolution adopting the Capital Region Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan Update 2024 to 2029, and to authorize the town manager to execute all required documents, including the certificate of adoption.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item K2, do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the council to approve R24-009. It's a resolution to repeal and adopt amended bylaws and enabling ordinance of the Central Connecticut Solid Waste Authority, also known as CCSWA, and to approve O24-007, an ordinance to create and become a member of the Central Connecticut Solid Waste Authority, amended bylaws and concurrent enabling ordinance for municipal adoption.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 3, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the council to approve R24-007, a resolution regarding defined traffic easement at 551 Celestine Highway, and to authorize the town manager to execute the acceptance agreement with the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation regarding the defined traffic easement at 551 Celestine Highway.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Durek. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ayes have it, passed unanimously. Moving on to item L, unfinished business. L1, do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the council to unallocate American Rescue Plan Act funds previously allocated for the Cove Warehouse restoration in the amount of $150,000 and drainage repair fund in the amount of $150,000 to be made available for reallocation. Additionally, I move to allocate ARPA funds in the amount of $37,000 for a feasibility study for the Community Center, Senior Center renovation and expansion project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Before I take discussion, I'm going to ask the town manager to comment on these items, L1. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first part of the motion was with respect to the Cove Warehouse restoration, the amount that was previously allocated for $150,000. As I've stated to the council before, the Cove Warehouse, there was no defined project, and as of yet, still is no defined specific project, and ARPA funds must be spent or contracted by the end of this calendar year. And we're concerned that we won't have the time to do the work that we need to, the architectural drawings, the structural analysis, et cetera, to get those projects in place in order to utilize these funds. So we are requesting reallocation of those funds to use on other historic buildings that we do have those projects and that work ready to go. And I've got a list before you all of potential projects, and those that have a 2 next to it, those are the ones that would come out of this allotted amount of money as proposed. We did get a grant recently to do the structural analysis for the Cove Warehouse, so that is going to be moving forward, so we are in process, and that also will allow us to then apply for additional funds to actually do the work, similar to what we've done with the old Academy building. But some of the projects that you see on this list are for some of those old Academy building projects that have come up, and we believe that we'll be able to get those accomplished within the time frame necessary to use these ARPA funds. The second piece of that motion was for the Drainage Repair Fund. That was $150,000 out of $175,000 that was previously allocated for that line item. Reason being is that with our current tree warden and crew, we've been out there, our physical services staff has been performing this work throughout the summer and actually has made very good progress on that, and they don't believe that we're going to be able to utilize these funds again in a timely enough fashion because we've been doing the work at a lot less cost. So we're proposing that that money be used for other projects as well. One suggestion from Physical Services is the paver box that will then allow our crews to also do some of the smaller road repaving jobs that we're currently paying higher rates to contractors to do. So that's also on the list that I provided for you as options. And then finally, to allocate funds of $37,000 for a feasibility study for the community center renovation and expansion project. This is coming because we've met, as many of you know, we've applied a few different times now for the CIF grants from the state. We are one of the towns that are eligible to apply for the Community Investment Fund grants. We have not been successful in those attempts. And the feedback that we've received from the reviewers has been that we need to do a feasibility first to really define exactly what the project is that we are going to be proposing to do. So they recommended we do this process and then reapply for CIF funds in the spring. So that's what this is for, and we believe that there's timeliness aspect to this because those grants will be coming up quickly and we need time to get this feasibility work complete. The goal is to do a complete renovation of the community center, but also an expansion, so we have dedicated senior center space there, and also multicultural center and multi-generational facility that it truly can be. It's already a huge asset for the community. It's old, it's tired, it needs help, but we believe that we can expand it in ways that can be a great improvement for the community. So,
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Councilor Zambrano.
Thank you. So just to clarify so that we're all on the same page, so we are making these funds available for the $150,000 that was previously for the Cove Warehouse and the $150,000 previously for the drainage repair fund for ARPA projects, but the only ARPA allocations we're actually making tonight are the $37,000 for that feasibility study. So we haven't spent anything other than that in terms of the current available ARPA funds plus these that we're unallocating tonight.
that's correct. And so I provided this list at the request of council to provide some suggestions. Being that many of you are seeing this for the very first time tonight, we thought we'd put it on the agenda for the next meeting for you to actually begin that process of allocating. You don't have to allocate all the money at the next meeting, but we would like to allocate much of the ARPA, especially because we do have time limits on that. So the more that we can get those defined and in place, it gives us the time that we need to get the projects completed.
Councilor Carbone.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because time is of the essence and we really need to get these things locked down. I would hate to lose any of this money that we can put towards the town. And I just hope everybody, and thank you for going over the Cove Warehouse, because I think everybody gets a little nervous when we start pulling funds from our historic building projects. So this is great. So let's hopefully get these things going soon.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Further council comment? Just want to make a couple comments here myself. Was brought up that the Cove is a gem in public comment. I couldn't agree more. I would also tell you it's my opinion that it's underutilized. We can do more there. It's such a beautiful asset for the town, and we're working really hard to make it even more of an asset. And the warehouse building specifically is a maritime museum. Most people in town do not know that. It is really something neat to go and see, but it needs help, the warehouse. It just looks like a rundown old building. But if you go into it, some neat things in it. But we have gotten, as the town manager said, some state money to do an assessment, a structural assessment of that. But the cove is definitely a priority. I know, Councilor Carbone, you've talked about it. I talk about it all the time. And we are going to do more and more work because I do feel it's a gem, as was stated, and I do feel it's underutilized. As for the $37,000 for the feasibility study for the senior center, I've made this remark before. I am a member of the senior center. I'm there a lot, and I hear from the folks in the senior center all the time about many different things. They're not shy, but what I hear most from our seniors, and I'm going to use their word, not mine, that the building is a dump. That's their word. But they compare that to going to the Rocky Hill Senior Center, the Newington Senior Center, and frankly, we are far behind. So this money, we've applied, as the town manager said, we've applied for money before. CIF, those are Community Investment Fund grants from the state. We have not gotten it. It's a big priority for us to make that place more than it is right now. But this money is for a feasibility study, which I think is necessary, and we're told it's necessary. But it's a high priority. We have to have a better facility for our seniors. And the thought is, long-term, a multicultural, intergenerational senior center where young people can interact with our older residents and learn from each other. It has so much promise. Other communities do that. We need to get there. This is the first step. So I will now entertain, if there's no further comments or questions, a vote on this. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That concludes unfinished business. New business, we don't have one. We do have an ordinance N1, new ordinance for discussion only. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So this ordinance is being brought to you for introduction only again. So at the last legislative session, the legislature did approve the ability for local governments to pass ordinances, allowing them to install what are called noise cameras. In Weathersfield, I know many of us have experienced the loud modified mufflers that make the machine gun fire sounds as an example of the kind of thing that these would go after. We've met with some of the consultants that have installed these successfully in New York City and other areas. They're high-tech, they're very precise. If 6 cars are going by the camera at the same time, and one of them has one of those mufflers, it'll put a red dot on the muffler causing the noise violation and what the decibel level is, and tag that, pull the license plate number and send them the violation. So this new legislation gives us the ability to adopt this. I know we recently adopted the ordinance for the speed and the stoplight cameras. So this is the next phase of that if the council is interested in pursuing it. So we put it on there. We had the town attorney draft an ordinance for this purpose, and it's here for your consideration. Again, this is for introduction. The public hearing will be at the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Anybody have questions on this item tonight? Councilor Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Town Manager, are we going to have some kind of presentation or somebody that we can ask questions? Because I think there's quite a few questions on these noise cameras that we need to ask.
We can see what we can come up with that. So there's only a few vendors that we're aware of that are doing these right now, and I think to ask one of them to come in and present and then later go out to an RFP, there may be some issues with that, but we can see what we can come up with.
Thank you.
And if you have specific questions, if you can send them to me in advance, and we can work to get the answers as well. So
will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dirk. Further council questions? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thanks. Mr. Town Manager, you shared with me a video or a few videos of just sort of how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if perhaps that might even be a first step in just sort of educating the council and seeing what you sort of described in words, but sort of in action is, might be helpful to at least get some context about what we're talking about here.
Sure. And there were several news reports done at the local news stations in New York City about the cameras and their success in addressing this problem. And so they were pretty in-depth stories and gave a lot of detail around it, so I can share those with the council, of course, and if anybody else would like to see them, just let me know and I'll forward you a link. But we can also show them at the meeting if you'd like. They could do better justice than I can, but it shows the potential for what they can do. I know there's a lot of people that have issues with them as well, so there's pros and cons to anything like this, so.
Further council questions or comments? Councilor Timbrow and then Councilor Timbrow. Councilor Timbrow.
No, I just kind of wanted to reiterate that I would be really interested in kind of understanding a little bit more, coming from someone who had a Jeep that has been incredibly loud but has passed emissions, and is just a very old car that I actually no longer have. I got a new one, but I'm curious to know, because I know it's more focused on the mufflers that you're talking about, what the impact would be to residents who maybe do have just an older car, and, are trying not to have another payment. I think that's, not super uncommon. So I would like to learn more, just so we could see, kind of the domino effect of what, trying to avoid any issues or penalizing someone for something that isn't, the modified version of what we're talking about.
Thank you, Councilor Timbrow. I have a 20-year-old car, and it makes a fair amount of noise, so
Very loud.
point is well taken. Councilor Zambrella?
Yeah, so I agree with everything that's been said. I definitely need more information on this. It's not something I'm very familiar about. Also very curious to hear what the public has to say.
Sure.
Because I don't have strong feelings on this either way at this point. One question which you might not be able to answer at this point, but do we have a general idea of how much one of these cameras costs?
In terms of the cost to the town to install them, the experience with New York and some of the other towns that have done this is that the vendors will basically finance it for you, and then the proceeds from tickets would cover the cost of installation over time.
I see.
But there'd be some kind of an agreement with that, so that they generally try to set it up so there's no initial outlay, but you might be, so like if nobody ever violated it ever, we'd end up having to pay the bill at some point, so. But I don't know exactly what the cost, but we can get some estimates for an installation as part of the next meeting.
All right, yeah, looking forward to learning more. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrella. Councilor Clancy?
It just brought up some questions for me.
Yeah,
but
go.
do you know if do they continue to service the equipment since they're?
Yes.
You do.
Yeah.
Do you know if, and maybe you don't, that's one of the things I'd like to know, is if they continually calibrate the decibel portion, because that would be the most important part
Sure.
of be prosecuting people. Do you know anything about that now, or you'd have to find out?
I'd have to find out
Okay.
specifically, but they do continue to service the equipment. They actually are, the groups that do this are they also do the speed and the stoplight cameras. They also are the groups that do all the processing of the tickets and things like that. We review everything before they go out, but they do all the processing.
So if we were going to do it, it would probably be part of the red light
Yes.
program that we're already going to be doing.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why we're bringing it fairly
Yeah.
quickly after they passed it, because it doesn't make sense to go out and get two separate vendors
Yeah, I
if
get
we're going to
that.
be doing something like that, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Clancy. Bless you.
Thank you.
Councilor Timbrow?
Sorry, that brought up
It's okay.
one more question. So I would also be interested to know, with the cameras, is this something, because you mentioned the fees, is this a lease and there's a continual fee, or is it where we own the cameras and it eventually ends and it's just servicing?
Yes,
How that,
it's-
and I'm sure there's
it's-
probably different.
It's the latter, so we would own the cameras by the legislation that was passed by the state. We have to own them. We can't, do a company comes in, they own the cameras and we get a percentage. We can't do that here. Other
Okay.
states you can, we can't do that in Connecticut. So we have to own everything outright.
Okay, thank you.
Any other council questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Tom, I saw your hand first. Tom?
Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walcott Hill Road. I can give you my address again for the location of the first noise camera. Okay? I think the word's out that I'm irritated about the noise, so the switch that they flip or whatever to make the backfire, they do that in front of my house regularly as I'm sitting out in the yard relaxing in my retirement. I wanted to talk a little bit about the executive session item, discussion of possible acquisition of state property. And I believe we're talking about DMV, I'm not sure, but there's been some conversations out on social media about what could be done with that property, lots of ideas, and I think everybody in this room will agree that our last acquisition of property was a disaster. It did not go well. Part of it had to do with transparency and people not knowing what was happening. And I realize that some of the negotiations have to be in private, if you will. I don't know if you're paying $1 for this thing or millions of dollars. I don't know if it's going to go to a referendum or it doesn't need to because of the low dollar value, but I think it would benefit the town in the process to share as much information as you possibly can up front. I've seen suggestions for a marina, all kinds of commercial restaurants and food courts and things like that. I've heard about a park that's beautiful right down to the water. I've heard about housing. Oh, we could put senior housing there. We could, maybe we'll put Section 8 housing there. I don't know. But I'd hate to see it get sold to the public under assumptions that one thing's going to be done with it, and then years later, something else gets done with it. And here we are with Keisha, and, you know, we got a barn with sunflowers on it, and I hate to see that on State Street. We could paint the sunflowers right now and be done with the whole thing. So I think, you know, there's some FOIA rules about what can be disclosed, and with my dealings with the Keisha, with the property valuations, the law says that you may release the information. You don't have to keep it under wraps. So I just plead with everyone up here to try and share as much information, real, honest, truthful information with what you're planning to do with the public, so that we don't end up in where we are now with Keisha Farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Further public comment? Anybody? Mr. Young.
Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. As I was talking about the various charges or revenue that comes in for the senior center, there's all kinds of money that comes in over the course of, and I'm only looking at 2018. I just put in an FOI for the most recent. Matter of fact, I think I forgot to put down the year on it, or years. But the fact is, here we have people paying to use a room, and Bengal, we have a group of people using a building, 300, what do you call it, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 64 years, and they pay nothing. They pay absolutely nothing. And from that, and I went through all kinds of costs that come into the town, and it's terrible. If I was a person who was paying, I'd be down here and whipped if I knew that somebody else was getting it for nothing. And now we've been waiting for 2.5 years since it's been exposed that the Little Red Schoolhouse is really being run by the Wethersfield Art League, and they don't have a lease, they don't pay any rent, they don't pay for any current expenditures. We pay it all. And we got to do something about it. And I've been waiting for the manager to get his I can't believe, Mr. Manager, how long this has taken you to do a lease. Anybody on the Silas Deane Highway that owns a piece of property would take him less than a day to get a lease put together and get his tenant signed up and get money coming in, but not the town of Weathersfield. We don't care, do we? But then we care about a roof that leaks, right? And we don't allocate the money when we should have. We wait a long period of time. But here's the thing. I think you should throw those people out. They don't need a lease. They're incompetent people that can't even make $1. How would they pay any rent? How would they pay for their operating expenses? Or are we going to continue paying? Is that what you're going to do like Mr. Ferris did with his pals with the Kinney Center? Yeah, that was an ugly lease. We should maybe sell it. Sell it for a residential home. Clean it out and put it on the market. Or in the year June of 2026, we have a lease that's costing us $57,000 a year with what they call Transitional Academy over here at 370 Silas Deane Highway. We're currently paying on a lease $57,000 a year. And come June, middle of June 2026, that lease will be up. It can go on further for another 5 or 6 months. Of course, the rent will now on an annual basis be $62,700 a year. But that only goes on for 5 years, and then you got to get another lease written up. I would suggest we take the Little Red Schoolhouse and turn it over into a transitional academy, just like we should have taken a piece of the Kinney Center back then. 10 years, almost 9 years, 8.5 years ago. But of course, we were already on contract on that for $100 a year. But we ended up paying $57,000 because of the mistake that was made. And this is horrible. Horrible for all of us. But you don't care, do you? I think the best bet is to throw these people out and put up a building in the back that would be for housing, not housing, but it would be an equivalent to what 370 Silas Deane Highway is, the square footage, and have that operating as the Transitional Academy. They needed to have that Transitional Academy on a bus line, but the bus line is right there on Wilkie Hill Road.
Time is up.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you.
Yeah. And we trust you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Further public comment? Anybody from the public? If not, I'll take a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So moved.
Second, anyone? Second by all in favor?
Aye.
Executive. Thank you, everybody.